The fall of the Roman Empire, hidden causes and lessons for the modern world. When we think of the fall of the Roman Empire, our minds often conjure images of invading barbarians, corrupt emperors, and a society in moral decay. While these are valid elements of the story, they don't tell the whole tale. The truth is far more complex and layered, involving an intricate web of social, economic, political, and external pressures. Today, we'll take a deeper look into the subtler, often overlooked factors that led to the collapse of one of the most influential civilizations in human history. By the end of this video, you'll not only understand the forces that brought down Rome, but also discover the lessons we can draw for our own times. To truly understand the complexities of Rome's decline, let's step back into the ancient world and uncover the untold story behind its fall. Next, let's delve into one of the most impactful yet gradual forces behind Rome's collapse: its economic decline, a slow burn that eroded the empire's foundations over centuries. At the heart of Rome's downfall was a crumbling economy. But to truly grasp the depth of its economic struggles, we need to explore how an empire that once dominated trade, wealth, and resources began to falter. Building on this, Rome's dependence on conquest played a pivotal role, as its wealth and power were initially fueled by relentless military expansion. Conquests brought slaves, precious metals, and new territories into the empire. But as expansion slowed in the 2nd and 3rd centuries CE, so did this influx of resources. The empire was left with a costly military to maintain and fewer new sources of revenue. This brings us to another key factor: inflation and currency debasement. To address budget shortfalls, Roman emperors began debasing their currency, reducing the amount of silver in coins while minting more of them. This led to rampant inflation. Prices skyrocketed, and confidence in the currency eroded, forcing many regions to revert to bartering. Another critical pillar of Rome's economy, trade, began to falter under mounting challenges. Pirates in the Mediterranean, coupled with barbarian incursions into critical provinces, disrupted trade routes. Essential goods like grain from Egypt became harder to distribute, leading to shortages and unrest. Adding to the strain, the empire's tax system grew increasingly oppressive, hitting small landowners the hardest. As tax burdens grew, many farmers abandoned their lands or sold them to wealthy aristocrats, exacerbating the divide between the rich and the poor. Over time, this reduced the empire's agricultural output and tax base, creating a vicious cycle of decline. Over time, Rome's once efficient administrative system succumbed to bloated bureaucracy and pervasive corruption, further weakening the empire. As the empire expanded, the growing need for effective governance became increasingly difficult to manage. Each province required a network of officials, creating a sprawling bureaucracy. However, this system became unwieldy and inefficient, with overlapping responsibilities and little accountability. Rampant bribery and favoritism further eroded the integrity of Rome's governance. High-ranking positions were often sold to the highest bidder or granted to loyal supporters, regardless of their qualifications. Corrupt governors and tax collectors enriched themselves at the expense of the state, further alienating the population. Compounding these issues was the growing instability in Rome's leadership. During the crisis of the 3rd century, the throne changed hands over 20 times in just 50 years, with many emperors assassinated or overthrown by rivals. This constant turnover led to inconsistent policies and weakened central authority, leaving the empire vulnerable. Another key factor in the empire's decline was the societal upheaval and changing values that reshaped Roman life. As the empire weakened, urban centers like Rome and Carthage, once thriving hubs of culture and commerce, began to decay. By the 4th century, many urban areas were in decline. The urban poor grew increasingly dependent on state-sponsored grain handouts, creating a population less invested in productivity. The erosion of traditional values further contributed to the empire's weakening foundation. The Roman virtues of discipline, loyalty, and hard work, which had underpinned the Republic and early empire, gave way to luxury, decadence, and self-interest. The aristocracy became more focused on personal wealth and leisure, while the common people lost faith in the state's ability to protect and provide for them. Another critical factor was Rome's heavy reliance on enslaved labor, which eventually led to widespread unrest and rebellion. This system created a precarious dynamic, as enslaved populations often outnumbered free citizens in some regions. Major slave revolts, such as those led by Spartacus, highlighted the inherent instability of this reliance, forcing the empire to divert resources to maintaining control. The rise of Christianity also played a pivotal role, introducing both unity and division within the empire. While it eventually became a unifying force, the early years of Christianity created tensions between traditional Roman polytheists and Christian converts. Additionally, the Church's growing influence often clashed with the authority of the state. As Rome faced internal struggles, external pressures also intensified, with growing and increasingly organized barbarian threats at its borders. The arrival of the Huns in Europe further escalated the situation, forcing many Gothic tribes to seek refuge within Roman borders. Initially allowed to settle as allies, the Goths soon rebelled due to mistreatment by Roman officials. Their victory at the Battle of Adrianople in 378 CE was a devastating blow to Rome's military. A defining moment came in 410 CE, when the Gothic leader Alaric led his forces in the sack of Rome, marking the first time in over 800 years that the Eternal City had fallen. While Rome was no longer the empire's political center, the psychological impact of its fall was immense, signaling the empire's vulnerability to the world. Following this, the Vandals, with their naval strength, seized North Africa, further disrupting Rome's vital grain supply. Meanwhile, other groups like the Franks, Angles, Saxons, and Lombards carved out territories in the empire's western provinces, further eroding Roman control. A major turning point came during the crisis of the 3rd century, 235 to 284 CE, a period of profound instability that laid bare many of Rome's underlying weaknesses. Amid this turmoil, competing claimants to the throne plunged the empire into near-constant civil war. These conflicts drained resources and weakened Rome's ability to defend its borders. The chaos of civil wars only intensified Rome's economic collapse, deepening the empire's financial woes. Cities were sacked, trade routes disrupted, and the treasury depleted. In an attempt to stem the tide, Emperor Diocletian introduced significant reforms, including the division of the empire into Eastern and Western Roman empires for more efficient administration. While these measures stabilized the empire temporarily, they also set the stage for its eventual division and collapse. By the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire, already weakened by internal strife and external pressures, had become a mere shadow of its former glory. The deposition of Romulus Augustulus by the Germanic leader Odoacer in 476 CE marked the symbolic end of the Western Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, endured for another 1,000 years. However, it too faced challenges, including the rise of Islam, the Crusades, and eventually the fall of Constantinople in 1453. In conclusion, the fall of the Roman Empire was not the result of a single event, but rather a complex interplay of internal weaknesses and external pressures. Its story is a cautionary tale of what happens when economic mismanagement, political corruption, and societal divisions go unchecked.